I got a couple of things I want to talk to you about before I watched the Bill DeMott experience. I watched one that was just uploaded today. Guys talking about some squirrels and stuff. What's been happening? I like the fact that I look back and you're obviously on YouTube and keeping in touch with people. I like the low key family Bill DeMott experience.
So the Bill DeMott experience started 5 years ago when I left WWE.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go out because I spent so many years traveling, and I was doing all this stuff, and I was doing all this stuff, and I never stopped to see what everybody else was doing. So I started the YouTube experience, and I started going around and meeting coaches or people that were in positions to help other people and why they did it and get to know them. So I had my first 7 episodes up or something like that. And I was doing a show with a legendary broadcaster, Ron Seggi. Went to Ron Seggi's house, get to know him and what made him special as a coach to someone in radio and things like that. Tragedy in my family. I stopped doing everything. Fast forward, we were sitting home and my son said, during the pandemic here, he says, what if we sat around and went on your YouTube as a family? And I'm thinking, he's 11. What is he? Okay, it's fun. And that's what we did. So we, my goal is to, as we came back into it, see if there was any reason for it, introduce my family a little bit, and then get back to me going back on, because the podcasts are on iTunes, so people can go to, I think it's BDE instead of the Bill DeMott Experience. But if you go on iTunes, you can listen to all those episodes. And my ultimate goal is to get back on there once a week, talk what's happening, talk about the foundation, talk about the things that are happening outside, after wrestling and outside of wrestling, because I think there's enough talk about wrestling right now. But that's how it started, and it was funny that my son brought it up, and when my wife and my daughter were up for it, and that was a goal we talked about in one episode. I spent so much time keeping my family out of social media and the public eye, because that's how you can protect them, that maybe it's time, with all the things we're doing with the foundation and things we're doing nationwide now, maybe it's time we come out there and let people see who's behind it all. So when we get a chance, and once a week I'll do it, and we'll try to put something on YouTube where we're sitting around, but it'll definitely be on it'll definitely be on iTunes. And I think it's a way for people to get out. I think it's important for people to know the other side of who you are and what you do, and if you can bring attention to the positives instead of everybody sitting on a negative, and is everything rainbows and ice cream? No, but there's information out there, and there's things that we can be doing for others, no matter how bad we think it is. And that was my whole thing, is because people know, as you, like you're saying, you knew about me from TV. There's guys and there's girls and there's people who think they know me because they're fans of Tough Enough. How they know me is when the red light goes on and that guy comes out. That's your job. I want people to know me outside of my job or outside of my character. So the Bill DeMott Experience is me bringing me in front of you the way it is. And sometimes it's going to be a hot topic, and sometimes it's going to be, we're talking about bird feeders and how we're trying to battle the squirrels that keep eating my bird food on me every day,
In fact, that's what I liked about it. I love that it was, and there's a couple times where I did laugh out loud, because it was just an intimate, you guys are talking around the microphone, and that made my decision very easy, because I always hesitate, because I have respect for you and I want to call you Mr. DeMott, but you kind of let me in, and I'm like, hey, Bill, it's Justin,
Yeah. It's so funny because, you do these, every once in a blue moon now, somebody will go, I have an appearance. Are you interested? Sure. And the first thing they go, well, my budget is. I go, well, if your budget works for you and if the date works for me, I'm good. And they're going, well, don't you want to bicker about it, or what do you green them? No, brother, it's not the way I work. And they go, who are you? And I go, I'm Bill. I'm not Hugh Morris. I'm not the tough enough guy. You called me. Hey, we're talking. This is way cool. Let's do it. And I think that's what people need to ultimately see from all of us is like, what our job is and who we are sometimes are two different things. But I think it's more important for me, for my kids to see that and to know, because they see me as their dad, and they see me break down, and they see me when I'm talking, we're way past 60,000 students and thousands of law enforcement, and they see me break down, they see me talk from the heart. And, my oldest is 26. And sometimes she goes, why don't other people see what I see? Well, because we hide it. I don't want to hide it. I want to go out and here's who we are. And, it's funny because and the YouTube thing came about because of the Chrisleys, Chrissy knows best.
Yeah.
I always said we should do it. I tell my daughter all the time because she's very private. So I always tell her I'm going to bring her out with me in public and put her on camera, and she's going to do these presentations with me. So we actually have a guy who's writing a project to put us on TV.
Wow.
As a kind of a Chrisley's, kind of a, dare I say, Kardashians kind of thing. Because you saw this, my family, brother, is the goofiest family you've ever seen in your life. You can't make it up. And if we could entertain people for a half hour a day with the madness that goes on in this house. So it's come full circle. I got a guy working on a TV treatment for it. And if it happens, cool. And if it doesn't happen, cool. The fact that people think that way, then the answer is, oh man, if you're thinking about it, putting that much time into the show, let's do it. So when, you shoot me a message, you go, hey, this is Justin, and I'd like to stay. Yeah, man, that works. Tell me what, my answer is, what time you thinking? And, how do you want to do it? And people are like blown away, like, really? Like, yeah, it's that easy.
Yep, I was too. I was just going, hey, this is great. I said, I can't believe we get a chance to.
Great to get to know you and then get to know what you're doing. And then something clicks down the line and go, wait a minute, Justin, boom. And then you meet, and that's, to me, that's as naive as I am. Sometimes that's how the world works.
Awesome. One of the things that we do, Wrestling Travel, is we bring fans from all over the world to wrestling events all over the world. Your Wrestle Kingdoms, your WrestleManias. We include everything. We like to have special guests like you, and people show up and surprise people. But on the tail end of that, travel has really kicked us in the just below the belt right now. But what are some of your favorite places that you've wrestled in? We're out of the United Kingdom, so you got to kind of make sure you give us some UK love. But what are some of your favorite cities that you've been in?
So funny that we've been to, like, as an independent guy coming in, you want to do your checklist of wrestling every state. Well, I've wrestled every state at least twice, and done all that. And, well, I worked and lived in Japan. Wow, that's off the list. And I worked and lived in Mexico, and that's off the list. And I worked and lived in Puerto Rico. That's off the list. Okay, where have I been? And I've been everywhere. I've never been to Russia. But I've seen just about everything I think is cool to see. And then that's, backtrack again. It goes back to, that's when I realized I've done nothing. I've sat and talked with Muhammad Ali. All I have is my mental image. I never took a picture. But the conversation wasn't for anybody else. It was just for me and Ali. But you see everybody, guys of my age, posting the pictures they've taken of everywhere they've been. And I've been to the greatest spots in the UK, and I've been to these famous places, and all I can do is talk about them and give my narrative of it. But I've never taken the pictures. I've never taken the time to, whoa. I've been in some amazing cathedrals, and I've been, I was there in Dublin when they blew up the building 2 blocks down from the arena during all that
Oh,
IRA stuff. And you're what the, but I love going and I love seeing the things that I've seen and you walk the streets of London. As a kid from New Jersey, you never thought you'd do that. You see the palette, you see these things, you see Big Ben Parliament. It was in the movie.
yeah.
It
Chevy
was
Chase.
it was Chevy Chase. And then you sit there and tell your kids, I've been there. I've seen this stuff. And what? And now it's like, I don't know what I would. I don't know, man. I think I even screwed up the question. I've seen so many things. My favorite places everywhere. I love going. I'm not a fan, and so to all my Canadian fans who I love, I'm not a fan of Canada. I cannot get in and out of Canada to save my life. It's the whole strip down, pull them in a route no matter what. So it just became, I'm not a fan of Canada. I'm not a fan of California because of, and it's simple. 3 months at a time for Tough Enough, 3 to 4 months living there, the traffic, the doing all the things, and then you go, I'm going home and I'm never coming back. And then season 2 would come and you go back to California. But little things like that. But I loved everywhere I've ever been because I always say the kid from New Jersey wasn't supposed to go there. So when you get to see these things and the amount that I've been able to take in, and I learned how to speak Japanese and survive there and order my food and find my hotel, and the same thing in Mexico and Puerto Rico and live there, and that wasn't the goal. So I guess that's the big softy answer to everything has been my favorite because landing in Green Bay and going on that field where Lombardi coached. What the hell? We went to Boise and stood in the blue field. I'm going, what? Who am I? So it's even the littlest things that other people wouldn't think of. It's just amazing, and I think that you got to take that stuff in, and the difference between nowadays and because you have IT and phones, and a lot of the guys, they're in and out of the hotel and they're doing their thing. They're whether gaming or that's the big thing, or twitching or YouTube, they're on their phones and doing this stuff. But even when you're YouTubing, are you really taking it all in? And back when there were no smartphones, there were none of those things. You walked and you took it all in. You were like, it's just the most. And then you hooked up with people who thought you enjoyed it. And I remember going through a church in London, and they asked us if we'd really like to see the whole church, and they opened a secret thing, and we went down.
Wow.
And it was like caverns, and it was like a cave, and all of a sudden it opened up into a big, where people were stored during the wars, and all these things. I'm going, where am I? How does this happen? And then, because in 4 more hours I had to get up and punch somebody in the face for 20 minutes. And then you move on. But
Yeah, no, it's really the journey that wrestling takes you on. And like you said, in the 90s and stuff, we didn't have a camera. I remember my second cell phone, they're like, it's got a camera. And I'm like, well, I don't want a camera. I don't need one. I just need a phone. Well, they all come with cameras now. Sitting down and talking with Muhammad Ali and stuff has brought me to, and I apologize. My interview keeps getting longer with you, but this is great. Do you have any, did you save anything? Do you have any wrestling memorabilia or something that means something to you? Or you're kind of a guy that just didn't really think about doing that?
I have, and my wife's a pretty big stickler on it, and my oldest daughter is as well. I still have, I think it's my original pair of boots. I have every magazine I've ever been in.
Wow.
I have the original posters when I first started making a name for myself. Some artwork that people have done. I have pictures from, pictures that were taken on some of the tours from certain places. But I would say I wasn't a big Chuck Norris, Schwarzenegger, Shaq. I got to know Tim Duncan very well, where he'd come and see me or I'd come and see him. Never one picture. The things that my son would be so cool because they're all legends. Magic Johnson and all these guys. And knowing Shaq and all these guys. And you don't have those things. I feel bad for that because I don't get to share them. But I was never like a hoarder. I was never, I was in the beginning just a little too serious for my own good. I was there to wrestle, and that's what I was there for, and to figure things out while I was traveling. But the memories are ridiculous, and you can't remember all that stuff. But I have a magazine where I did something with the Honky Tonk Band years ago when I was still greener than goose shit, and it made the magazines, and it had this big guy come out of the audience and come and put it to Honky Tonk. So we were doing an appearance last year together in Philadelphia. So I dug it up and I brought it. I said, man, I was there for that. And he goes, whoa, where'd you find that? I'm like, that's me. And he goes, no kidding. And I know him. And it's he, baby. That ain't you. And yeah, it is, man. That's me. So, you get to have some fun with that stuff. But I collect. I never collected things from. I was a big fan of Japan. So there were certain things from Japan I'd buy and kept, and because I was there for 3 years, and it was an important part of my. Same thing in Mexico, but nothing like I kept and went, wow, this is a special thing for this, or this is a special thing for that. The one thing I do wish I did have is I wish I had the United States belt. That's the one, I say it all the time, that's the one thing I wish I had. I have tough enough belts that no one has. They're put away, but the one thing I wish I had was it was a really, really weird time in my life and in my career during that time when I was doing the U.S. stuff, and that's the one thing I wish I had. So I think that's a goal of mine on my bucket list before I start slurring really bad. I want to have that.
Get that belt back.
WCW US,
Such a cool design on that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
I want to talk. We'll kind of wrap up here, but part of the whole goal of doing these lockdown sessions is to get to know people, what they've been up to, how the fans can keep track and follow you. So I want to talk about the Carrie Ann DeMott Foundation, which I've looked back at. What really stands out to me, and I'm going to let you speak on it because you're obviously going to speak up better than me, is that it's not just about the tragedy that you go and speak on. You speak about decisions being made, and that's very relevant right now in this pandemic, even though we're all slowed down. But the decisions being made, I was very impressed with it, and just like you to get a chance to talk to the fans about it.
Well, thank you. We started the foundation. It'll be 5 years coming up that we lost my daughter to a multiple DUI offender. And for people who don't know what that is, that's someone who's been arrested more than once for drunk driving. So we were trying to. Life changes. She was 20 years old. She was a junior at the University of Central Florida. And my family was good, and my family was tight, and everybody was right on point. And our lives changed because of a decision that was made by someone else. So as we started trying to figure out what to do, and I mean just like that, we were lost. We didn't know what to do. Work stopped, life stopped. I had to worry about my son and my other daughter and my wife and all the people that were affected by that decision. And we started to think about Carrie and what she was doing in life. And while it's very easy just to go out and talk about drunken, impaired, and distracted driving, there was more to that, and there's more to her, because the biggest thing I said is I didn't want my daughter, I don't want anybody's family member to become a statistic. Because once a tragedy happens, you become part of the statistic. Unfortunately, people are numb to it and they move on. But I knew my daughter, what she was going to do. She was a sociology major. She wanted to help people. So as we started speaking, who better to talk about bullying at the time than the internet's biggest heat seeker, myself. And in social media, the effects that it plays on people's lives and livelihoods and their mental state and their physical state. And then we started talking about the texting and the distracted driving. And we got involved in that here in Florida with some very dear friends of ours who were affected by it, and then going on to speak to the Senate. And so we talked, and then we talked about, it really comes down to, and as Christians, my family, as followers of Jesus, it's about a decision you make. And then you realize that the decisions you make affect other people. They affect the community. They affect a sports team. They affect your job. They affect your classmates. They affect everybody that you don't know. Your friends are affected. Your cousins are affected. Someone has a memory that's now been affected. And so we started no more empty seats. We don't want any more empty seats at a dinner table. No more empty seats in a church. No more empty seats in a classroom. No more empty seats in an office building. No more empty seats in a car because someone made a decision. So we went out, and drunk driving scares people because there's people out there, and I don't stand on a soapbox when I do it, and I don't dare stand in a glass house. Guilty. Before there was Uber, before there was Lyft, before there was this, and before there was that, everybody's made a decision and has paid for it in one way, shape, or form. But the things we have now, the things we know now, and the things we can help these kids with is facts and realism. So when I go out and speak about bullying, I'm coming right down the pike at it, knowing what I'm talking about, both verbally, physically, through the internet, on computers, on text messages, on pictures you send. And I use examples of common things that are happening now. Athletes that made a mistake and sent the wrong tweet, lost millions of dollars in their career after all that hard work. And it's one decision. And that affects his coaches, his college, his parents who put in the time, all the people that put, athletes are making decisions that are costing more people than not. Social media, the texting and driving. So we put together, I have an hour, 45 minute to an hour presentation. I take people on a ride. We start out with me in a quick I think it's 1 minute and 30 seconds. Instead of saying, hello, I'm Bill DeMott. I was 28 years in professional wrestling. When I get introduced by whoever we're speaking to, I hit my clicker, and here comes a minute and 20 seconds of me destroying. I think it's poor Funaki at the time. And hitting the no laughing matter, and people watching that and going, that's him, and wait, that's this guy. And so it loosens everybody up. And now we're going to have a conversation. and we go down the line and we talk about the decisions, and then I get to introduce Carrie Ann at the end and bring it home. And the foundation is simply, there's no short answer, so I apologize, but the
Oh, that was great.
foundation is grassroots. My wife said, if we're going to go speak, if you're going to relive this every time you speak, then let's start a foundation. And we put everything we had into to start a nonprofit. Anyone can start a nonprofit. We started a 501c3 nonprofit, which is a lot of legal terms and a lot of legalese and lawyers, and we put everything we had into starting the foundation. And we work off of donations and sponsorships. We travel what turned out to be just Central Florida, and Florida is now the nation, speaking to students and law enforcement, youth groups, sports teams, and students anywhere from elementary school through college. And every presentation is different because in elementary school, you're talking to kids who are now getting ready for middle school, social media, who are getting grilled to get ready for high school. Naturally, you're talking to high school students about life and after school, and now you're driving and now you're making decisions. And then in college, the repercussions now as an adult of the decisions you're making. And then I get a chance to speak in corporate events such as Siemens or Lockheed Martin, who now are hiring and bringing us on in their safety weeks and things like that. And we talk to adults face to face. Because adults, we do this, as you know, just you and I do the same thing that people do, but people don't want to hear it from a stat sheet. People don't want to be handed, here's some stuff and this is what could happen. There's power in 6'2", 300+ pounds of emotion and realism that stands in front of you for an hour and comes and sits next to you and talks to you as a person. And at the end, waits and speaks to every one of those kids. Because now those kids know they got someone they can trust. Because I just trusted them with my life and my story. And they come and speak to me. And they line up to speak to my daughter. They line up to speak to my wife. They line up to speak to my son. And shake his hand and tell him what a warrior he is. And then so now when we started the foundation and it's going so strong, we want to be strong in the community. So we work with everyone. That we sat down and realized that there's families out there struggling who've been affected the same way we have. And I say this openly now, no one came to us and said, let us help you through this. There's an organization that's out there that's supposed to be the biggest organization against drunk driving. And their interests are in raising money for their organization, not for the people. So my daughter and I became victims advocates. We took the state attorney's classes. So now the foundation has victim services. And now we go through the process with families that have been affected. And with our relationships with law enforcement and stuff, they get turned to us and we sit with them and we work with them, and sometimes our job is just to listen to them and let them talk, and because we've been through it and we understand it. So the foundation, I'm proud of what we're doing in our life. We're coming up October 10th will be 5 years since my daughter was taken from me. The foundation has been in full swing for 3.5 of that. And we're reaching people every day. Even during the pandemic, we're out in the community. As a simple thing as what would my daughter be doing? She'd go and be feeding the doctors, nurses, people. And so that's what we've done during the pandemic. Once a week, we picked an organization. We partnered with our good partners there, right down here, Goodfellas Pizza, who have a big heart for the community. Told them what we want to do. So we go to different fire stations, different police stations, different hospitals, and we feed these people, and they can eat. And So I'm always challenging myself as I sit here every day. So we had our t-shirts. We put them on sale, and they'll be on sale till the 30th of May. So the No More Empty Seats t-shirt is on sale for $20. $5 of that $20 is going to Second Harvest Food Bank. So at the end of May, we're coming with a big fat check for Second Harvest Food Bank so they can replenish what they've done feeding people during this time. And we say it's not about us. And I let everyone know that you may not have known my daughter, but by the time we're done talking, you'll know exactly who she is, what she's doing, and what she set out to do. That's how we come to terms with waking up every day and figuring it out. But that's the foundation. My vision is to not be around for 5 more years. My vision is to shut this down. And I'll put it in perspective as a father and someone who's running a foundation. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And the pandemic, I think, in layman's terms, is when there's an exorbitant amount of numbers of people affected by something. Drunk driving has been called an epidemic. And that means that people have been affected, not as strong. Numbers, death. Why do we have to get to a pandemic to pay attention? Here's my soapbox. All that wrestling and all the stuff I've done in my life, and I'm asked one question. Why do we have to let it become a pandemic? Why, Justin, do you have to be affected before someone listens? Why does someone have to be? So if you watch my social media, I'm all over it. Whether it's a basketball player, football player, baseball player, wrestler who gets stopped for DUI, I'm putting it out there and asking why. I'm trying to reach those people and say, come talk to me. Let's have a conversation. So the foundation is for the community. The foundation is because my daughter is 20 years old. She didn't get a chance to graduate college. She never got a chance to get married. Her boyfriend's family was affected. There's something about when they say your parents should never have to bury their children. The night where everybody came to pay respects to my daughter, there were hundreds of people in the building. There were hundreds of people in the parking lot, and the line went down the roadway as far as you could see. There were hundreds of people who couldn't get in. That's my daughter. That's who she reached. And if I have been blessed with a name that people recognize, and I said it earlier, I've tried to keep my family out of that. Well, it's too late for that now. So now we have the Bill DeMott experience. And I'm going to take everybody on the ride with me. I'm going to introduce the foundation. And we're going to make changes. And we're going to make sure that people understand and people start, getting the bigger picture. So anytime I get to talk about that, I do my best not to get emotional or stand on a soapbox, but that's really what I've been doing for the past 5 years.
No, I mean, I can't even imagine, but just some of the things that I saw and was able to look up prior to speaking with you, just turning that into a positive and something she would be so proud of you for doing. So my hat is definitely off to you, and we're going to have all the how to follow the foundation and the Bill DeMott experience, everything on here.
It's funny. The funny thing about it is I say, this is none of this is possible, and our conversation is impossible without wrestling. Like, people will never understand my love for wrestling and what wrestling prepared me for, what Sullivan prepared me for, what Bischoff prepared me for, what Heyman prepared me for, what McMahon prepared me for, what the road prepared me for. Because now, instead of 16,000 people every night for 10 minutes entertaining them, I'm standing up on the Senate floor in Tallahassee, Florida, in front of 200 of the hardest critics in the world, trying to change laws. I'm standing in front of 600 military personnel on an army base. I'm standing in front of 2,500 students. And it's all because of wrestling. And I say that with a smile because we don't know the journey. You know, like I said, I wasn't a fan. I wanted to play football. And something took me to where I was, and something, and by the grace of God, I survived all my foolishness while on the road and lived through it to be able to tell the other side of the story. But without wrestling, there's no presentation. There's nothing would have ever given me the guts to do what we're doing now. And it comes from the career I had. I didn't have a job. I had a career for 30 years. That's pretty cool. So it all comes from wrestling. So when wrestling calls, you answer, and there's always something there to figure out or work together with. So
I've always said there is something about wrestling that, you know, you may take the average person and they may kind of look down their nose at wrestling, but for the most part, and obviously there's exceptions to every rule, the wrestlers that I've come across in locker rooms and the fans, they're some of the most genuine people that will stand up and support in a time of need. We raised $3,300 for the Red Cross during Mania Crawl. No, people might say $3,300 is not that much, but in a time when most people don't know where their next dollar is going to come from, and do I need to save this for meat and toilet paper and all the craziness going on, to give any amount of money to a foundation was great. And it's just hats off to wrestling.
What a $33.
Right.
It's a blessing that people, it's a blessing. And I wish everybody would start looking at it that way and go, that's amazing. $3,300 to the Red Cross, because the Red Cross isn't going, we can't do nothing with this. The Red Cross is going, bless you for that, because you didn't have to do that. So hats off to everyone.
The video I watched this morning, we're gonna switch gears here, and I'm gonna kind of wrap this up. Bill, I feel like I can talk to you forever. I feel like we just missed each other in the locker room.
We'll do it more often.
Yeah. Now, TikTok. Are you on TikTok or the family, or what's happening? I don't know much about TikTok.
I'm on TikTok. Here's why I'm on TikTok. I try to stay up with, social media and things like that. So I saw a dear friend of mine down here in Central Florida. He is known as Trooper Steve. Steve Montiero works for WKMG, News Channel 6. He's a safety and traffic expert. He is still a Florida State Trooper, and him and I do a lot of work together for the foundation, and we go around and speak to kids. Well, he was talking about how unsafe it is for people doing these TikTok dances while they're driving.
Yeah.
So I go, TikTok. Casey, what do you know about TikTok? I don't know nothing about that one. So I go on TikTok. Now I don't even know nothing about it. I sign up for it and make a thing. So what do I watch it, and they're doing a dance. And so I have my wife and Casey, my daughter. I'm like, you two learn this dance. I'm going to TikTok it. Like, no, I'm going to do it. So they did it for me. And then I TikTok, my son slow motion power bombing into so I go on to TikTok, and it really is something I never thought I'd do, but I go and watch it for about 20 minutes a day to see what people are doing. And there's the bad side of it. Some things I can't believe that are allowed on, it's way different than Twitter or Facebook, because the language and some of the stuff that's on there should never be there, in my opinion. But then there's a lot of stuff where people are doing some really great things. And you see the athletes that are out there, and the Schwarzeneggers and and those people and the Stallones, and they get to see the other side of them. You know, not the serious side, but the funny side. And they talk about some funny things, or that gives them a stepping stone to do things. So I said, let me get on TikTok, and every once in a while I'll put something out there, and people like it, they like it. They don't, they don't. I don't really, you know, I'm not counting on them coming here and building me a log cabin, my followers, you know. But so I got on TikTok, and that's the running joke now in the house is, now he's on TikTok too. So it's I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, and now I'm on TikTok. But I got to be honest, I can't do any of the dances, so I don't really shoot myself doing any of the dances yet. Maybe I will.
Yeah. Well, we just started a TikTok as well. So what is your TikTok handle? What is it?
I think my handle on TikTok, if I knew how to.
I know this is the hardest question I've asked all day. Is your handle on TikTok?
Okay, me. So my TikTok handle is at the Bill DeMott.
At the Bill DeMott. All right, we'll have that up, and you can count Wrestling Travel as a new follower. Well, we'll look forward to the, you know, when the dances eventually get released after you know the steps. But Bill, I can't thank you enough, man. It's been a conversation that I've wanted to talk to you. And like I said, that one where I was trying to go between Mr. DeMott and Bill, and not having met you, going, hey, I hope this guy doesn't expect me to have all this journalistic integrity. Just a guy trying to do something for people to watch. So I can't tell you how much this has meant to me. Thank you very much.
Brother, you've been awesome. And again, always grateful for people who reach out and want to talk to me. And this was really cool. It's for the time of my life and the things that are going on, so therapeutic for me. And I appreciate you spending time with me like this. And to your fans and everything you guys are doing, you know, keep going forward. And I hope this is the beginning of a good relationship. I look forward to doing it again. And man, I can't thank you enough. It's been a pleasure.
Man, yeah, thank you. Hopefully we can meet in person at an event, and maybe bring you out and meet some of the fans from the UK and all over the world, and get a chance to just talk to you. So Bill DeMott, thank you again. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.